Daniel Atlas performs a card trick for us as he instructs, "Come in close. Closer. Because the more you believe you see, the more easily you will be tricked. Since what is seen? While you think you're seeing, you're actually screening, evaluating, and looking for significance. My responsibility is to use the most priceless gift you could possibly offer me, your attention, to make you miserable." In Chicago, Daniel performs on the streets. A lovely young girl is seen while he performs a card trick for her. The card tricks, which appeared to be standard perform, finished with his card mysteriously reflecting in the side of the John Hancock Center. A strange man in a hoodie watching the performance, whose face is never revealed. The lovely woman then persuades Daniel to invite her to his place for sex, where she reveals herself to be a huge fan of his. But before they can start, he gets distracted after finding a lover's tarot card. March 29, 4:44 p.m., 45 East Evans Street, New York, NY is written on the card's one side. Merritt McKinney, a hypnotist and street mentalist, is introduced to the audience at a restaurant. On a married couple, he performs his act. He hypnotizes the wife first, rendering her speechless and immobile, while entering the husband's head and revealing, through mind reading, that the man is an adulterer who is having a sexual relationship with his wife's sister. Merritt then connives to defraud the man of $250 before hypnotizing them into forgetting the incident. He discovers a hermit tarot card as he packs up his posters. On a ferry boat in New York City, we meet Jack Wilder, a con man and magician who entices clients by offering a reward if they can find out how he bends a spoon with his mind. When someone correctly guesses it, Wilder compensates him, but not before stealing their wallet. After that, he runs away and runs into the masked man, who slips a death tarot card into Wilder's coat pocket. Henley Reeves is a trained stage performer who works at a theater in the city. She concludes her performance with a water tank escape act in which she appears to be devoured alive by flesh-eating piranhas before emerging unharmed in the center of the audience a few seconds after the water turns horrifying red. She discovers a High Priestess tarot card floating in the tank as she gathers her materials. Each of the four street artists makes their way to New York City, where they check into a run-down Lower East Side flat. The fact that Henley was previously Daniel's personal assistant and that Merritt has the ability to read minds, Daniel and Henley are taken aback when they run into one another. While Merritt and Henley bemoan Daniel's domineering nature, Jack shows up on a date and introduces himself as an admirer of Daniel. The flat where they have been invited has a lock that he can pick, but nobody is there. Instead, they come across some incredible machinery's designs, which they know might help launch them into fame. 1 year later, in Las Vegas, the four magicians have established themselves as the Four Horsemen, an official troupe, and are now supported by insurance magnate Arthur Tressler. In Las Vegas's MGM Grand, they are on stage performing. They announce that they are going to rob a bank as their final trick, which has never been done on a magic stage before. Daniel announces that they are going to pick a volunteer at random while the crowd is so enthused and there are several who appear to be on a personal vendetta. To let the audience choose, Merritt, Henley, and Wilder circulate with bowls of ping-pong balls. Daniel receives a ping-pong ball from Wilder that has the letter B on it, indicating which sector they should pick. A volunteer from Merritt then throws a 5 ball to give them a row to pick from. Henley then throws a 13 ball, which causes the man sat in seat B513, a Frenchman called Etienne Forcier, to rise up. On the microphone, Etienne identifies his bank as the Credit Republicain de Paris. Daniel uses the opportunity to thank Tressler for sponsoring the Horsemen while Etienne is making his way to the stage by pointing him out in the audience. On stage, Merritt briefs Etienne as Wilder sets up him with a teleportation helmet. Etienne is then given a deck of cards by Daniel, who instructs him to choose a card at random. The next step is for him to have Etienne write his name in English on the card he selected, a red 2 of hearts. In the center of the stage, the group now conjures a teleporter. They make Etienne approach the step. Merritt informs Etienne that since it is currently 11:50 p.m. in Las Vegas and 8:50 a.m. in Paris, his bank will open in approximately 10 minutes. The teleporter is subsequently turned on, and it appears like Etienne is successfully transferred off the stage. At precisely the same time, Etienne in his bank's vault in Paris gets himself to his feet. He can interact with the Las Vegas stage using a microphone and built-in video cameras in his helmet. In the center of the room, he notices a big stack of cash totaling about 3 million euros. Daniel tells Etienne to place the card he just signed and his performance ticket counterfoil in the center of the money pile on the floor. Etienne is then instructed to depress a button on the side of his helmet. The push of a button causes an air duct to open, sucking up the entire amount of cash. The safe is actually empty when the bank personnel open the vault moments later while arriving for work at that specific bank, finding only the card and ticket counterfoil on the floor. In the meantime, the Las Vegas audience is being showered with its money. In order to look into the theft, Interpol agent Alma Dre and FBI agent Dylan Rhodes are recruited. Alma has already decided that interrogation is pointless, but Dylan chooses to conduct the interviews on his own. When Etienne hears Dylan use the epithet bullshit, he immediately starts acting like he's in a Philharmonic orchestra, despite his insistence that he is innocent and his earnest belief that he was transferred to France. This leads to the quick conclusion that Etienne had been hypnotized. After questioning the four horsemen, Jack isn't comfortable enough to fall asleep, and a bored Henley magically causes her opposite chair to spin. Merritt uses the interview against them, exposing Alma's secrets and Dylan's abandonment concerns, which are significant later in the film. The most tense part of the interview is when Daniel teases Dylan by saying that the police lack evidence and that the four horsemen would always be in the lead. Police are compelled to release their suspects after failing to apprehend them when magic is offered as the only possible explanation for the theft. While Dylan considers over this, a policeman approaches him and excitedly informs him that one of the audience members was Thaddeus Bradley, an ex-magician who earns money by exposing the techniques used by other magicians. Thaddeus had actually filmed the presentation and discovered how the heist was carried out. He brings the officers back to the stage and describes how the man was transported to Paris while putting Dylan in the volunteer audience members' shoes. The four horsemen tricked the audience into thinking the theft occurred immediately by taking the money weeks in advance. Etienne easily slid through a hole into a copy of the French bank vault to which he had been taken. Furthermore, Etienne was not randomly chosen. Instead, the magicians had palmed ping-pong balls showing his seat number, which they then swapped for the ones taken from the bulls. Thaddeus informs Dylan to be ready for the magician's next performance in New Orleans since he knows this is just the beginning of what is to come. When Dylan asks Thaddeus to assist the police in capturing the four, Thaddeus declines and walks away. Arthur Tressler approaches Thaddeus as he gets ready for his next film and offers to pay him to keep out of the Four Horsemen's meteoric ascent to popularity. When Thaddeus declines once more, Arthur threatens to ruin the former magician. Thaddeus instead issues a cautionary warning to him after Arthur illustrates the threat, saying that Arthur might be the one to suffer the consequences. The sold-out performance for the Four Horsemen's New Orleans premiere is going to be covered by the media. The magicians show the audience how to perform the classic disappearing rabbit trick after maybe becoming aware of Thaddeus' presence. When the word freeze is given, Merritt hypnotizes 12 regular individuals into believing they are football players preparing to tackle the quarterback, leading to Henley being sent soaring through the air by powerful soap bubbles. They bring Arthur on stage for the grand finale, empty his bank account, and then distribute the money to the audience, which is made up of people whose insurance claims were rejected or lowered by his company. Chaos is caused by audience members' delighted yells as they receive alerts from their banks regarding the deposit. When Arthur tries to pursue the magicians, he discovers that he is tied to the stage. With the help of the hypnotized football player spectators, the Four Horsemen are able to flee after Dylan rushes up on stage to apprehend them and yells, "Freeze!" The magicians are pursued by the police through the streets, but they are ultimately deceived. Only Alma comes close when she manages to corner Daniel with her rifle, but when she sees him defenseless and terrified, she becomes hesitant and lets Daniel get away. Although Alma is to blame for Daniel's escape, Dylan is aware that she was possibly the only one who was not led astray by the Four Horsemen. Alma informs him about the rumors of a magician's secret society known as the Eye when he is finally more receptive to her viewpoints. They were a band of magicians like to Robin Hood, robbing the wealthy and giving to the needy while frequently relying on illusions, huge leaps of faith, or even mindless obedience. Dylan is dubious at first, but then Alma begins to make analogies to a specific magician that Thaddeus exposed. That man was so humiliated that he tried a difficult underwater trick that failed, but there was no body. When a furious Tressler speaks to Thaddeus, he realizes that the heists may have only been a minor diversion in the grand scheme of things. To expose and degrade the Four Horsemen in their next performance, Arthur recruits Thaddeus. Before the Four Horsemen's final performance in New York City, things are heated. They continue to follow their mysterious benefactor's directions but are concerned that after everything is done, their benefactor would turn them into the authorities. Jack, who is the youngest, is the most alarmed, and the others tell him to carry out the plan. Jack is left alone to destroy any remaining evidence after the police come and surround the building, but Dylan and his partner find Jack's hiding place. He was unable to burn any evidence. Dylan and his companion are after Jack as he clutches and attempts to leave. Before Jack loses control of the vehicle, the magician makes an effort to flee in a stolen car. The car pursuit is broadcast live. Dylan tries to free the men when the vehicle flips and skids to a stop, but he is only able to grab the evidence before it catches fire. The other four horsemen decide to carry out their final act in New York despite posting a video online grieving Jack's passing. Dylan and Alma discover from the documents Jack attempted to delete that the four horsemen are aiming for a specific safe that is being watched by another FBI team. Due to Alma's lack of authority and the four horsemen's propensity for outwitting Dylan, another FBI team leader takes over the investigation. The team rushes to the room where the safe is kept but discovers it to be empty. It became out that another FBI agent had been hypnotized to issue orders to move the safe. After taking the safe to its destination, the squad ran into Thaddeus. They should check the safe, Thaddeus commands. The four horsemen have once again outsmarted them since all they discover within the safe are balloons. Dylan is now certain that the team has a fifth member, maybe Thaddeus or Alma. The final performance will take place at 5 points. Dylan tries to capture the four horsemen once more, but the three get away by using holograms, dummies, and even leapt off the roof. The cheering throng is once more showered with money, but this time it's phony. Dylan accepts that the tale of the four horsemen is finished and chooses to focus on his affections for Alma instead. Thaddeus returns to his car in the meantime and finds it loaded with the genuine money that was taken from the safe that was stolen. When the FBI arrives, they detain Thaddeus for participating in the plot. Dylan is informed by Thaddeus in prison that he was set up. He reveals how the four horsemen staged Jack's death with a fake standard-issue FBI automobile and carried out the safe theft using mirrors, but he is unable to determine how they were able to set everything up independently. Then he understands that Dylan, not Alma or himself, was the fifth horseman. Thaddeus can't figure out why Dylan was in charge of the entire operation. In an effort to understand why, Dylan tells Thaddeus that he intends to keep him behind bars permanently. The four horsemen are shocked to learn that he is the unknown benefactor who brought them together before he departs to reunite with them. They receive the eye initiation from him. An old newspaper story from France is discovered by Alma in her current newspaper. The magician who attempted the underwater act and perished, leaving his family impoverished, is the subject of the article. When Dylan shows up, he admits that he is the magician's drowned son. The bank in Paris and Tressler's company, who declined to pay insurance on his father's death, the safe producing company, which produced the safe used in his father's trick in the horseman's final act, were all targets of his horseman plot to exact revenge on them. Thaddeus was also a target for his father's humiliation. Despite the fact that the company produced reliable bank safes, the safe Dylan's father used was made of lower quality metal, which caused it to warp and ultimately led to his death. Up before the Eye hired him, Dylan was a homeless person. Although he acknowledges that he had everything prepared, he did not anticipate running into Alma and falling in love. She thinks about handing Dylan in for a second, but finally decides against it. Well, that's all for today's video. We hope you enjoyed it, and please support us by subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to get notification for new videos every we post.